Hello and welcome. I'm Martha Soria Sears, founder and president of Next Step Transformation. I'm very happy to be here today to share my story, my journey, and to talk with you about the amazing program that I have put together. I'm an expert in the human potential, which translates to I help people awaken to their greatness. What I do is I help my clients identify and change the limiting beliefs that are limiting their success. And then we take it a step further to create their own unique unlimited success formula using the 5 steps that we're going to talk about today. So you're in the right place if you feel you have experienced success but somehow have hit a plateau. You are in the right place if you can see just how far you can take your career or your business, but feel that something is holding you back and you're not sure what. You are in the right place if you feel that things just keep happening, that throw you off balance, distract you, stop you from where you want to get to. What it boils down to is that you are here because you are tired of allowing your limiting beliefs to limit your success. I have studied the power of the mind for over 40 years. And I've studied with the greatest minds in the industry of human potential. I've had teachers like Jose Silva, Tony Robbins, John Assaraf, Bob Proctor, and so many more. In the last 27 years, I have been specializing in teaching and coaching on the human potential. I developed a system that helps people transform their mindset and experience unlimited success. I put this system together when I was an advisor to top executives at Fortune 500 companies such as IBM, HP, Cisco, Prudential, and so many more. Through all of my years of studying, practicing, and teaching, I learned 2 things that drove me to start my own transformation and success practice. And these 2 beliefs still drive my practice today. Here they are. 1 is that every person has greatness in them. And 2, the majority of people have forgotten just how great they are. My whole practice and my life is dedicated to reminding people of their greatness. And the first step is helping them see how their limiting beliefs are limiting their success. Today, I'm going to teach you one piece of this system. I am going to show you how to remove that glass ceiling that many of you are feeling. What is the glass ceiling? It is that feeling that you can see so much potential but feel that something is stopping you from reaching it. You know you can do it, but something's holding you back. It seems like there's invisible forces at work that are holding you back from reaching a higher level of success. That is what a glass ceiling is. A glass ceiling is nothing more than limiting beliefs. Sometimes it's the limiting beliefs of others, and sometimes it's your own limiting beliefs. Because I do acknowledge that sometimes that glass ceiling is initially placed there by someone else. But often enough, we ourselves place that glass ceiling there for ourselves. Now you might say, but wait a minute, you've worked with the highest executives of Fortune 500 companies. What do you know of limiting success? All right, well, let me tell you a little bit about my story. I started in corporate America as a software developer doing research and development in the telecommunication industry. In the 1980s, the software engineering field was about 99% male. Most of the men had never worked with a woman, let alone a minority woman. I remember the first week I was at work. I was working late because I had been assigned to a project and I wanted to come up to speed on that. So there I was. It was fairly late, and as I went to the break room to get a cup of coffee, I ran into one of the other engineers, whom I hadn't met yet. He looked at me, and I was expecting him to introduce himself and welcome me to the team. But no, he looked at me and he said, "I think you forgot to take out the garbage in my office." I kind of took a step back and I looked at him with a questioning look, um, and he noticed that. And I mean, I know that the stereotype, at least back then, was that engineers lack social skills, but I thought this was a bit harsh. And he was a bit surprised by my reaction, and he said, "Aren't you the janitor?" You see, I know about glass ceilings. I have experienced them several times in my life, both in my personal life as well as in my career. Glass ceilings are limiting someone to what they could reach for or attain based on their background. That background might be what school you went to, what color of your skin, your gender, or maybe even just how you look, or how you talk, how you dress. In that break room at 10 o'clock at night, facing a colleague, I didn't know what a glass ceiling was, but I did know that other people's beliefs and expectations had the potential for holding me back. Now, to many people, that experience would have told them, and actually at the time many people did tell me, "Hey, you're already an engineer. Leave it at that and be proud that you broke a couple of barriers." So, yeah, no. That's not good enough. Not for me, nor should it be for anyone else. You see, limiting beliefs equals limited success. And I realized that night it wasn't somebody else's limiting beliefs, but my own limiting beliefs. I started to work on that. That glass ceiling encounter ended a year later when that same engineer was reporting to me. And although I never asked him to take out my garbage, he did sometimes bring me coffee. Here I am with my teacher and mentor, Bob Proctor. And he tells us it doesn't matter where you are nowhere compared to where you can go. And I truly believe that. Regardless of social or financial status, the most common pain points that bring new clients to me are feeling lost, stuck, or just spinning. Some are feeling overwhelmed with business and life. They've been trying so hard and just feel they're not getting anywhere. Wanting to do and have more, but not knowing how to get there. One of the first times that I realized that I had a system that worked was when I worked with a family friend on improving his business. Alfredo had a restaurant, and he swore up and down that the maximum he could make in one day was $700. He was tired, and he just couldn't imagine working any harder, but he needed more money. So I worked with him for a month. I worked with his mindset and his limiting beliefs. After just 1 month, that restaurant was making $2,400 a day. And he was working fewer hours than when he was making $700 a day. You see, his beliefs were stopping him from seeing the possibilities of more business. By removing his own glass ceiling, he was able to see how he could offer his value, his food, his service in different ways. And that's what tripled his daily sales. His limiting belief had been that his only venue for selling was his restaurant during business hours, because of course he didn't want to work any more hours. He was already exhausted. But when he adjusted his mindset, he opened up to the possibilities that if people liked his food, they would want it anywhere, anytime. Suddenly he realized that people might like his food when they gave parties, or they might like it when they are home and not wanting to go out, so they would like it to bring it home. Without any extra investment, just that one shift in thinking, he was able to serve more people, triple his sales, and work less hours. A very common limiting belief is that what you are doing today is the only thing that is possible. There's a saying in the high-tech industry, if you keep doing what you have always done, you will keep getting what you've always gotten. The first limiting belief that I invite you to look at is just that. Are you in a state of mind thinking that the only thing you can do is what you are doing today? Disarming that single belief tripled Alfredo's sales. What could it do for you? Think about your career, think about your business, think about your life. There are limiting beliefs you probably have right now as to how much you can sell, how much you can earn, what type of lifestyle you can have. There are limiting beliefs there that you've probably grown so accustomed to that don't see them as limiting beliefs. Let's talk about a client of mine. Melissa had been working in corporate for many years, and she had an MBA, or she has an MBA, and she really, really wanted to be able to manage people. That's where her heart was at. She loves developing people. She loves growing people. She really wanted to be a people manager. However, no matter how hard she worked, no matter what additional training she got, her request for promotion kept getting denied. I mean, they would increase her salary, they would give her bonuses, but they wouldn't give her her own team, which is what she really wanted. So she came to me and we started working on that. And as we started working, we did find a limiting belief. And when we removed that limiting belief, within 3 months, she got her own team. What changed? Melissa will tell you that what changed was that her expectation of what was possible shifted. Do you know what Melissa's limiting belief was? She believed that American corporations do not believe that Asian women are good people managers. And because she's Asian, she decided that they were talking about her. She had heard about this, she had read about this in articles, she was convinced that there was a glass ceiling for Asian women in management. And she believed that all that data could not be wrong. There must be something wrong with her. And therefore, that's why they wouldn't make her a people manager. Once she realized that she had bought into the label, she was able to disarm it and show up to her career differently. She immediately became noticed by her colleagues and her management. And like I said, within 3 months, she had her own team. And today, she's on a fast track to executive management. Again, one of the strongest limiting beliefs is what we think is possible. It limits our success, and worse, it limits our dreams. And our dreams are what cause us to reach higher. Without dreams, we feel stuck and we feel lost. If you were to ask Melissa today what the cost would have been for her not to start working with this program, she would tell you that her not working with this program, removing your own glass ceiling, that she would still be without a team and frustrated and probably would have given up on being a people manager. The one piece that she feels really brought it home for her was what you are going to be learning today. And then she used the rest of the program, the other 4 steps, to take it even higher. But what got her unstuck and ready to move forward is what we are talking about today. So remember, one of the strongest limiting beliefs is what we think is possible. What you will learn today from our time together is understanding what limiting beliefs are, seeing where limiting beliefs come from and why and how are they limiting your success. And then you're going to learn a 3-step technique to disarming those limiting beliefs and replacing them with beliefs that are supportive of your unlimited success. And then I'm going to share with you how you can take it further to develop your own limited success formula. Now, I'm going to teach you as much as I can in the limited time that we have together, and then I promise that I'm going to show you how you can take it further and get more. What are limiting beliefs? I have given you a few examples already with Alfredo and Melissa's story. But limiting beliefs are known more by their technical term, which is paradigms. A paradigm is a group of beliefs and habits programmed into our subconscious mind in our early life. Paradigms control our behavior, our relationships, our career, our spending habits, health, self-image, our failures, and our successes. Now, some paradigms keep us safe and on track, but some paradigms are no longer serving us. They may have served us when we were growing up, but they're outdated and we never upgraded to a different way of thinking. So some paradigms are limiting or impeding our ability to create the life that we really want. Some typical challenges that I see in my clients are procrastination, fear of speaking in public, fear of failure, fear of success, overwhelm, essentially emotional upheaval as opportunities present themselves. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to think about one challenge in your business today that you want to work on, so that when we go through the exercises, you can apply them and actually take action today to change one of those limiting beliefs. So how do you select that challenge? Well, think about what you fear most, or what causes a knot in your stomach or a tightness in your chest when you think of it. Typically, those are physical reactions to limiting beliefs because a part of you knows that that belief's no longer serving you, but a part of you doesn't know how to replace it. So it's like having an old operating system. You know that it needs to be upgraded, but you've just never done it. And that's what's happening with these limiting beliefs. Some of the beliefs that you might already be familiar with are, as a woman, I will never make it into executive management, similar to the one that Melissa was battling. Minorities are seldom chosen to be partners in big-name law firms or big-name consulting firms. I never went to college, so I don't have the education to make it big. And the list goes on and on. How much money are you leaving on the table because you've bought into some of these limiting beliefs about yourself, about society, about business, your customers, your products? So, what do we do? What do we do? Well, the first step is to understand where these limiting beliefs came from. You see, paradigms are programmed deep into our subconscious mind, really in mainly 3 ways. 1, by a person in authority during an impressionable moment. 2, through strategic repetition. And 3, as a result of a traumatic event, or which causes an emotional impact. Let me give you an example of a statement said with conviction, which is number 1 there, by a person in authority during an impressionable moment. You see, for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why I disliked the magazine Reader's Digest so much. Even though when I was growing up, my parents used to read it all the time. I used to read it when I was growing up. But as an adult, I noticed that every time I saw that magazine, wherever that might be, I had a real physical reaction to it. It was more, it wasn't just a dislike, it was a repulsion. I felt it in my stomach. And I wondered, where did this begin? So using the tools that I'm sharing with you today, I decided I had to figure out what was going on because, it was quite ridiculous. So I applied my tools, and using the method that we're going to learn in a moment called the memory recall method, I used my tools and came up with a memory from my high school teacher, a history teacher. Now, he was also the football coach, and he was big and muscular and loud and mean. He was an imposing, scary guy to a very short 13-year-old girl. And he had this habit of going on rants. It could be somebody said something one day or he read something, but he would come into the classroom and just rant. And on this particular day that I came to remember, he was on a rant about Reader's Digest. And he started in on how stupid that magazine was, how only lazy people or dumb people would read it, and he went on and on and on. Now, on that particular day, I guess I must have been impressionable because I started to really take it personally, and I started to become embarrassed. I was embarrassed because my parents read that magazine. Oh my goodness, he might find out that we actually have that magazine in my house right now. What's going to go on? And as he continued on with his rant and his insults about, these people, can't they think, and going on and on and on, I started to feel more than embarrassed. I started to feel ashamed. And then I started to feel scared. What if he finds out that my parents and I actually liked that magazine? And that was the last time I picked up that magazine. Didn't think much of it. I didn't do it consciously. I just stopped. I didn't do it consciously. But here we are 10, 15 years later, and I'm having this reaction to even looking at the magazine. And of course, once I uncovered that memory, I was able to disarm it. And now I enjoy reading that magazine again. If it's at the dentist office or at the doctor's office, I always pick it up and thumb through it. So I was able to disarm that belief. Now you might say, Martha, it's just a magazine. Who cares? Well, that's true, but what if the rant of that day had been about a particular group of people and their intelligence and their trustworthiness? That would have been different, wouldn't it? You see, when I came to the United States, I did not speak English. Because this was the mid-60s, there weren't all the programs and resources that are available to people today. So the schools did the best that they could. And in the small town that we lived in, there was only one elementary school. And again, there weren't a lot of resources. It was a small town. And what they did, the way that they would handle children coming in from any country, in my case it happened to be from Mexico, but from any country that did not speak English, they would put them in what at the time was called the mentally retarded class. And it was with the understanding that as each of these children would learn English, they would be moved out of the class and into the normal classes. So it seemed like a fairly good resolution. And I remember the other 29 children who also happened to be from Mexico, and they were bright, they were inquisitive, they were adventurous, they loved being in this country and wanting to learn English, and I remember them. I remember them very well. See, what happened is that once that label had been placed, other parents started to treat them differently. Other teachers, without even noticing, started to treat them differently. Other children started to make fun of them for being slow and for being in that class. And over time, slowly, each of those children bought into the label. Out of 30 of us that went into that classroom, only 4 of us graduated from high school. Only 2 of us went on to university. Buying into the label. That is a sure way of creating a paradigm that is limiting your success. That's an example of a paradigm being created through strategic repetition. Every single day, those children heard the same story. You're slow. You can't learn. You're dumb. You're not worthy of being in a normal classroom. Every single day. Until they believed it. But every one of us has a situation like that. I have had clients whose parents would tell them, you're stupid, you're lazy, you're no good for anything, every single day. And when they grow up and they have skills, they have that they love, but do not believe that they can do anything with them. Because after all, they're lazy, they're dumb, they're never going to amount to anything. And they buy in to the label. Let me give you another example. You have a young, bright, happy girl. She's 5 years old. She's playing in the front yard of her house and she hears the ice cream truck coming. And she says, I want an ice cream. So she runs into the house. Mommy, 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 may I have a quarter for an ice cream cone? And her mother says, I don't have any money. Go ask your father. The little girl runs to her father and, Daddy, may I have a quarter for the ice cream truck? Oh, sure. He reaches into his pocket, gives her a quarter. Life is good. A few days later, she's playing in the front yard. The ice cream truck comes around. Mommy, 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 I want some money for the ice cream truck. You know I never have any money. Go ask your father. Okay. She runs to her father. He reaches in his pocket, gives her some money. Life is good. This scene plays out several times throughout that summer, and even through some summers after that. This young lady is now an adult, has very good education, has a degree, an MBA degree that really positions her for making a good career, having some good earning potential. But she has a problem. She cannot keep money. Even if she gets raises, she ends up at the end of the month with no money. She loses it. She lends it to people that don't pay her back. She makes bad investments. She overspends continually, and she ends up with no money. No matter how much she makes, she ends up with no money. So we take a look at that. And we remember that young girl, Mommy, 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 can I have a quarter? And her mother saying, you know I never have any money. And after hearing that day after day for several summers, that little girl grew up with a belief that women never have any money. But Daddy always had money, so the people who have money are men. And the only way to get money is to ask men for that money. Multiple limiting paradigms that needed to be disarmed and replaced before she could learn to better manage her money. And she found out that she actually makes very good money. And as soon as the overspending stopped, the lending to the wrong people, the bad investments, all those behaviors that were being driven by the old paradigm. Change the paradigm, the behaviors changed, and now life is good. Hopeful. Food for thought. So let's talk about how is a paradigm created? When is it created? Where is it created? Well, let's talk about Paget's model of cognitive development. What this model says is that from birth to 2 years old, the way that we learn is through our 5 senses. We touch things, they're hot. We know not to touch them again. We taste something, it doesn't taste good, we spit it out. So we use our 5 senses to learn about our environment, because when we're born, of course, we're a blank slate. So from 0 to 2, we're in sponge mode, and we're just picking up everything about our environment through our 5 senses. As we move from age 2 to 7, our learning style changes a little bit, in that now that we've explored our environment with our 5 senses, now we start to observe and imitate, because this is when we start to learn to walk, it's when we start to learn to talk. And how we learn is through the adults that are in our life, our parents, our neighbors, our teachers. If we watch a lot of TV, the family or people that are on the TV, that's how that child learns. Because again, there's nothing there until this information is being fed into the brain. So that child learns to imitate those adult behaviors. And those adult behaviors include what to eat, how to speak, what words to use, what to like, what to dislike. Because at that point, that child doesn't know how to judge, but it does know how to imitate. So if one of the parents judges something as good or bad, then the child simply imitates that judgment. Not because they have that judgment, but because their parents had that judgment, and therefore they believe that is the truth. So up until age 7, we operate in an egocentrism, which is the inability to distinguish between our point of view and that of others. Goes back to, if the parent's doing something, that must be the truth because we are the same. That is my parent, and everything my parent does, I do too. And I know that if you observe families with young children, you'll see this behavior, and it may just not have clicked how far it goes. Because remember, at that age, that child does not know how to make a choice. That child does not say, oh, I like this behavior, I'll keep it. I don't like that behavior, I won't keep it, because they don't know what they like and don't like yet. They only know what the adults in their life are saying to like and not like. So around age 7 is when we overcome that state of egocentrism, and we slowly begin to realize that each person is different. A little bit of stress starts to happen, sometimes a lot of stress. If you notice, when kids start going to school, they become stressed because they realize that the child on the other side of the table is not like them. And that scares them because they don't know how to behave any other way. And this is the first time that they start to realize that not everybody's the same. Then we go into our teenage years. And, well, teenagers and early adults. We realize that our parents weren't always right. And sometimes we can compassionately look at that and say, well, they didn't know any better. But sometimes we look at that and we say, I don't want to be anything like my parent. And then we throw the baby out with the bathwater, and our behavior goes completely the opposite. And sometimes a person might say, that's just who I am, and they continue with the behaviors that they imitated in their childhood. So what I'm saying is that as you go into teenage years and early adults, now you're starting to make choices. But here's the thing. You're making choices with your conscious mind, but the operating system has already been established. And if it comes to a conflict between what you think you want and what the operating system says you should have, the operating system will always win. So it's that subconscious holding on to those paradigms as truths, and it's your mind's job to always keep you consistent with that truth. It saves you from yourself. So here we are. We find ourselves after age 7. We are ready to conquer the world. Unfortunately, we're ready to conquer the world with other people's beliefs, habits, feelings, expectations. So we're going to really roll up our sleeves and get to work now, but I have a favor to ask you, and that is, as we go through these exercises, please withhold judgment. Like I said, people did not have much of this information when you were a child. So generation after generation, parents have been following what their parents did. It wasn't malicious. No parent ever gets up in the morning and says, I think I'll create a limiting belief in my child so that they will not be able to be successful. No parent ever does that. So I ask you to withhold judgment, because this is not a blame game. What this is learning to reclaim your power of choice through understanding. And that's what we want to do, is we want to understand so that then we can make a different choice. Okay, so let's get to work. Let's talk about that glass ceiling. So some clients create a glass ceiling at some but at some level they realize the fact that what they defined as success is really not in alignment with what makes them happy. These are the times when these people create their own glass ceilings as a way, again, to stay consistent with their truth. And if they don't believe that they deserve to succeed, then they will self-sabotage. But of course, no one wants to admit that they self-sabotage, and therefore we start to look for excuses as to why we are not succeeding. And that's where the story becomes, they won't let me. So we're going to talk about that story, because a lot of that story of I can't break through this glass ceiling comes from not understanding why we're holding ourselves back, and sometimes not wanting to admit it even though we know. For example, You know that you're on a very important project, and if you can make this project succeed, you will be promoted. And as hard as you want to do that, and as much as you want to do that, you keep procrastinating. And other things are more important, and you don't do what you should be doing, and you procrastinate. You make mistakes, you make bad decisions, and the project fails. Even though you were very capable of making it succeed, what happened? What happened? So, let me tell you a story. This is the story of why not. About 6 months ago, there was a doctor that came to check on my parents, and his whole job is he works for an insurance company, and he checks on elderly people to make sure that everything's okay in their environment, etc. After he finished checking on my parents, he and I started talking, and he asked me what I did. So I told him I help people become successful. And he says, "Oh my goodness, I really need you because I don't have any money." Okay. He says, "I really want to have my own practice. I really want to have my own patients and really offer to them what I feel is tremendous value, but I don't have any money." And we kept talking, and he was a charming guy. He really was. And within a 2-minute conversation, he said 10 times, "But I don't have any money." And just to test to see if this was a limiting belief, I actually gave him 3 different ideas on how he could get the money to start his own practice. And each time he waved it away and finished with, "I don't have any money." He wasn't even hearing the possibility that he could get that money. He would wave it away, excuse it away. He was buying into the story of why not. Anytime anybody presented him with the possibility of getting that money, there was always the why not answer. Meaning, he was stuck. His belief was he didn't have any money, and he was going to stick to that. That is a clear example of limited thinking creating limited success. How are you going to say yes to your success? Well, we're going to take 3 steps. This is where I'm going to ask you to find something in your current business or career that you feel is a challenge, because that's where we're going to start to look for that limiting belief. And then the second step is that we're going to find the root cause so we can disarm it, release it, let go of it. And I'll give you a couple of techniques. One I already shared with you, but I'll explain it more clearly so that you can apply it. And then 3, working on establishing your new success mindset. So we're going to go deep now, so roll up your sleeves so we can get to work. So how do we unlock our power to change? Before we get started, I remind you, this is not about blame or guilt. This is about understanding. And I'd like you to be compassionate with yourself, compassionate with the information that you uncover as we work through this. So, as I mentioned before, typical challenges that give us a clue that a limiting belief is active is procrastination, fear of speaking in public, fear of failure, fear of success. I want to add a really important one here, and that is perfectionism. That's another way of saying fear of failure. When I was with KPMG, I developed and mentored dozens of new consultants. And I remember this one woman who was really the best at process mapping that I had ever seen. And I really wanted her to be recognized. I really wanted her to showcase her own talent. So I told her that Next time that she finished a process mapping, instead of me presenting it to the client, I was going to have her present it. And this way the client could acknowledge her directly. She immediately turned white, completely pale, started to perspire, and her eyes were as big as saucers. It's like, what's wrong? And she says, no, I can't do that. I have a fear of speaking in public. Well, I said, I've taken many classes of speaking in public. I'm always speaking in public, so let me help you. I can teach you how to speak in public. I can help you. So I started working with her in the afternoons. And I did a mock presentation where I had just 3 people that she knew, and myself, and then her. And she had her notes, and she stood up, and I thought that she was going to start speaking, but she just started crying. It's like, oh, okay, so we need to go deeper. It's more than just a fear of speaking in public. Something's going on here. So we used the very same steps that I'm teaching you here. So identifying her limiting belief is, I cannot speak in public. It made her physically ill. She felt like throwing up. She would cry. I thought she was going to faint. Physically ill. So we used the recall method, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. And as we searched her memory banks, we came upon a memory where her parents, her family attended this church, and it was a requirement that the families go out and give testimony. So because when they did go out, a lot of people wouldn't open the door to them, her parents decided that they would use her to get people to open the door, and then they would show up and give testimony. So she would knock on the door, and the people would see that it was this beautiful young girl, sweet young girl, and they would open the door. Hi, honey, how are you? And as soon as they opened the door, then her parents would show up and start to give testimony. Even at that young age, she knew something wasn't right. She knew that that was a ruse. She felt that they were being manipulative, that they were cheating the people, that all sorts of negative emotions started to just pour out of her. A lot of anger, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of shame. It's like, you know, those people opened the door because of me, and on and on and on. So we worked on disarming that by helping her have a conversation with that young girl and say, what I'm doing today is very different. I'm not asking anybody to open the door. I'm actually delivering a service that I was paid to do. I'm actually giving them what they have asked for. And it wasn't long afterwards that she was able to give her first presentation and did wonderful. And today, her whole career is speaking in public, sometimes even with some hostile audiences, and she handles them with such finesse, and she loves what she does. So limiting beliefs were holding her back, and taking that limiting belief away, her career just skyrocketed. So think about what it is that makes you sick to your stomach. Like I said, it was very clear that something was going on, because she just wanted, she was nauseous, you know, couldn't breathe right, etc., etc. I mean, it was very obvious that something was holding her back. What is holding you back? Think about that. Just take a moment to think about it. And pick one limiting belief that we want to apply for the next exercise. Okay, so now that you have your limiting belief, let's use your memory banks. There's 2 ways to approach this. Often, I would say 8 out of 10 times, the location of the root cause is in childhood. because that's when those paradigms were created. And where in childhood having those paradigms helped you survive, times change, people change, etc. And it's time to update or upgrade that paradigm. So there's two ways to use the memory recall method. One is that you start with what your paradigm is today. Like, for example, um, if I'm having problems with my manager, I'll say, okay, the manager before this one, I had problems with that manager too. The manager before that, I had problems with that manager too. And you keep going back, and you keep going back. This is actually, I'm sharing what a client of mine went through, all the way back to 5 managers before. And yes, he had had problems with each and every manager. And his belief was that, there just aren't any good managers. So we went further back, previous to when he got his first job, and I asked, what were your parents' beliefs around management? Well, his mother didn't work, but his father, didn't work outside of the home, of course, but his father had always had problems with his manager. And his father would come home and rant and rave about how bad his managers were. It was never, and his father had a hard time keeping a job. He would get fired, he would get into fights with his manager, he would quit, and he had a hard time keeping a job because his father had a really difficult time getting along with anybody in authority. And so what that translated to this young man was, there are no good managers. Anyone who is in management is the bad person. And we were able to disarm that by having his adult mind see where that belief came from. And he did remember, he said, I had forgotten, but my father had a hard time keeping a job because of him not being able to get along with his managers. And he was repeating the same pattern as his father. Once he identified that, once he found that root cause, then his adult mind was able to have a conversation with himself and recognize that he had a choice to make things different. So what we did is we took a look at his present manager. What are the things that you like? What are the things you don't like? And what can you do to make this relationship better? The thing is, the moment he did that, and the moment that he made the decision that he was going to work to make this relationship better, the manager moved on, and he got a manager that he absolutely loved and got along well with and was very recognized by, and he hasn't had another problem with his managers since then. So once you eliminate or disarm that limiting paradigm, you now have a choice of experiencing the polar opposite of what you've been experiencing. So if you've been experiencing a lot of problems with your manager, now all of a sudden you get along great with your manager. And that's the benefit of disarming these limiting beliefs. And that's how they help increase your success. Because every one of these where you're having a difficult time and now you're not having a difficult time, it's like you spring forward, you turbocharge. So there's 2 ways to use it. One is, like I said, you start going back from today. When was the last time before this, and before that, and before that, until you get to the first time that you remember having the knowledge of the problem. The other approach is opposite, where you automatically jump back to the youngest years you can imagine and ask yourself, what were my parents and the adults in my life saying about this? What were they saying about, in this case, managers? What were their beliefs? What were their attitudes? And start to see if there's a correlation between what you were hearing when in your youth and what you're experiencing today. And when you find that correlation, then you can disarm it with your adult mind, because today, see, when you were a child, you couldn't make a choice, and you couldn't say, I'll take this belief but not that one, because you didn't have that ability. As an adult now you can. So when you identify it, now you have a choice to make. I will keep it or I will let it go and replace it. And that's the third step. You replace it. Because if you don't replace it, your mind will do it for you, and typically it'll replace it with something that's already there, and probably something that is just as outdated as the one that you are trying to disarm. So make sure that the last step is, what is the belief that I want to have? For example, with the man that I was just talking about, his belief was, I want to be able to have a great relationship with my manager. I want us to be supportive of each other, etc. He had his requirements, and that was his new belief, and he acted on it, and he supported it until the old belief withered away. And that's the last step. And if you can't think about what you want to replace it with, then write out what the belief is that you discovered or uncovered, and then write the polar opposite. So for example, if it was something around money, and the belief was, in order to be you either follow money or your heart, or you're not going to ever make any money with art. If that was the old belief, then the new belief is, my art will bring me great abundance. And that's your new belief. So do the polar opposite of what you remember, those statements, those beliefs that you just discovered. And that's the last step, is identifying, what is my new belief. Another thing that helps with establishing the new beliefs is identifying the big why. Why is it that you want to change? Why is it that you no longer want to limit your success? And typically that why needs to be bigger than yourself. So it might be, my family, I want to provide better for my family. I want a better house. I want a better car. I want to be healthier. So the big why is a way to then keep you on track with your new belief. So based on what we've talked, I would suggest that you use the T exercise to identify your old paradigm, and then you can identify where it came from, and then on the right hand side of the sheet you write your new paradigm. And it is 1 per 1, so for every one that you want to disarm, you create a new one. So for example, only people with a lot of education get rich. So this person found that this paradigm came from society, from family, from friends, from when he was growing up. And his new paradigm is, my success is based on competence and commitment. Another one, rich people cannot be trusted. This person's grandmother really drilled that into her. So the new paradigm for this lady is, the more successful I become, the more I can help others. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of how to replace that old paradigm with a more supportive paradigm of your success. And the cycle of success is to just keep, repeating the process. It's like peeling that onion, those layers of old beliefs and old paradigms. So now I want to share with you, we've gone deep, and now, and that's been very important, an important aspect of your unlimited success. But there is more. I don't have time to go into everything else that is part of this program. So let me start by telling you the case study of John. John had a small construction outfit in Georgia, but he had a dream. He really wanted something bigger. So as we worked together on his new success, on removing those limiting beliefs. He used the very same 5 steps that I'm talking about here, and he used them over and over. He would finish one paradigm, start with the next one, start with the next one, and each one got him higher and higher. Over the course of 2 years, John went from having his small construction outfit in Georgia to now being the owner of a multinational power plant contracting company. And what his company does is that they design and install power plants in third world countries. So what does John say if he had not gone through this program? John believes that without the opportunity to create his own unlimited success formula, he would still be that small construction company in Georgia. So the question is, what is it going to cost you if you don't take the step to take this course? What's it going to cost you not to do it? Let's talk about the rest of the steps. We're not going to go in as much detail, but the course does go step by step, and we have exercises, and I'm there holding your hand the whole way through. It's a 5-week course. The other steps that we won't go into deep detail, but I will at least give you a couple of minutes of talk on each one. D is define your desired outcome. We went through R, which is releasing your limiting beliefs. I is internalize your greatness. V is vanquish the negative noise. And E is exceed your expectations. So now I'm going to walk through the 5 steps and let you know how you can turn today's information into lasting transformation. And then after that, I'm going to extend an invitation to you to take this further with trainings, with tools, with support, and work with me to create your own unlimited formula. So we start with D. D is define your desired outcome. And this is where you start to think about that dream, that vision. Where is it that you want to go? In 2006, Life Success Productions conducted a study with 200,000 people regarding life satisfaction. And the findings concluded that although the majority of people are not satisfied with what they are, have, or do, they don't know what they want. So the first week of our time together in this course will be defining your desired outcome. Where do you want to get to? What does have more, do more, be more mean to you? You see, there's an old Japanese adage that I really like. It says, vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare. So if you've been spinning or feel stuck, this first week is all about unsticking you, giving you that star that you want to go after. Because without that of where you want to go to, you'll continue to spin. So the first step is defining that desired outcome. The second step is the R, which is release your limiting beliefs. Now this is where we went deep today, and you really did learn some necessary steps to discover your own limiting beliefs. And I gave you a couple of techniques on how to disarm them. In the 5-week course, we do go much deeper, and you do get a workbook on with multiple exercises on how to continue to resolve additional limiting beliefs. But what you got today really is enough to get you going. I internalize your greatness. So here, our focus is reminding you of your own personal greatness, reminding you of your strengths and how you can leverage past successes to go even further. And then we talk about your business or your career and remind you of the greatness of that. This is where we identify the big why. Because that big why, again, needs to be bigger than you. And sometimes it's identifying what is the blessing that you are offering the world through your talents, through your greatness. So this is a really important week. It's one of my favorites because at the end of it, you remember that, man, you really do have value to offer and you really do want to offer it. And it's time to get going on it. Excuse me. It's a very powerful week. Week 4 of the course is Vanquish the Negative Noise. You know, the average person has 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And of those thoughts, 80% are negative. And of those, 90% of the thoughts are thoughts we have had before. So this means that after all that thought power leakage, we end up with less than 10% to focus on reaching our goals. No wonder you feel like you're spinning or running in place. Having a positive, focused state of mind is crucial for success. And in this week, that's what we learn, how to do that. We also help you assemble a toolkit that immediately gives you an instant attitude shift, so that if you're going down the path of negativity, with your toolkit, you immediately snap back, you're back on track, you're back to center, and you're moving forward again. That's where many programs fail. They tell you how to do everything, but they don't give you a way to stay on track. So if you fall off the track, you have a very hard time getting back on. But here, we assemble a toolkit that is guaranteed to keep you on track and keep you moving forward. And many people feel that this is their favorite week of the program. And the 5th week, this is all about celebration, because this is about recognizing what has been accomplished and knowing that you can take it even higher. This is what John did. He got to this step and then started all over again at D, got to this step, started all over at D, and each step is higher and higher and higher, and there's really no limit that no limit to how many times you can take it higher. So the point is that this course, what you learn in this course and the materials that you receive, it's not just a one-time event. All of the materials are available to you in the Academy Library, and your access to that library doesn't expire. So you get to listen to the materials, download the materials, and continue to use them over and over again as you build your success higher and higher. I have had clients taking these 5 steps, and they started out as unemployed and now are owning their own businesses successfully. I have clients that went from minimum wage jobs to building a career with 6-figure incomes. There's no limit to how you can apply these 5 steps.